Friends, this story is based on events that actually happened. It begins with an interview, where a man sitting in front of the camera says that people may not even be interested in their story because what they do is incredibly dangerous. The world thinks they are crazy. But he makes one thing clear. He has been involved in extreme sports since childhood, and he takes what he does very seriously. When he is asked where the story should begin, his answer is simple: Chana, because Chana was the one who started everything. Friends, this is Chana, basically a walking storm. He is alone in the mountains of Norway when his landing goes wrong and he breaks a bone in his leg. But he does not stay there waiting for help. With an injured leg, he walks nearly 2 miles until he reaches a fisherman. The fisherman offers to call a helicopter, and this is where Chana's personality becomes obvious. He refuses. A helicopter is way too expensive. He only asks for an ambulance. This is the same man who brought all of them together: Dario, Carlos, Armando, and Alvaro from Barcelona. One day, Chana calls and tells them that some people in the Pyrenees are trying something new: wingsuit flying. Alvaro shows them the thin nylon suit and explains that it lets you stay in the air longer. The wings fill with air, and instead of simply dropping, you can actually glide. They all decide to try it. Then the plane climbs into the sky, and one by one, they all jump. For the first few seconds, there is nothing but screaming, and then the wings open. Suddenly, they are not simply falling anymore, they are actually flying. By the time they reach the ground, they have discovered a completely new rush that they cannot stop thinking about. That night, everyone celebrates Carlos's birthday. Chana stands up and says that whenever someone claims extreme sports are only a hobby for rich people, he tells them about Carlos. Friends, this is our Carlos, a man who makes his living climbing mountains, is perfectly happy living in a rented place, and wants nothing to do with a mortgage. 26,000 feet in the Himalayas, El Capitan in Yosemite, then Greenland, all with that same small backpack, without ever having to clock into an office. Then Chana's toast becomes more serious. He tells Carlos never to change who he is, and gives him a warning that will carry much more weight later. There will come a time when the pressure becomes overwhelming no matter who you are. When that moment comes, you have to hold your ground, protect that spark inside you, and stay true to yourself. The scene then shifts to a hall where Carlos is giving a lecture. There is one thing constantly on his mind: Nameless Tower, a granite tower more than 20,400 feet high, with weather that can turn against you without warning. A few years earlier, a storm forced him to turn back when he was only around 2,000 feet below the summit. He also mentions the existing record. 2 Australian base jumpers had jumped from 19,537 feet, the highest ever at the time. After the lecture, a woman approaches him. Friends, this is Myriam, a biologist by profession with an almost obsessive passion for climbing. She makes it clear that she is not some fan following him around. She has a proposal. She wants to organize an expedition to jump from Trango Tower and break the record, with the entire trip funded by filmmakers who want access to the expedition. There is only one condition: the team has to consist of 5 people. Carlos responds coldly: there simply are not 5 people capable of doing this, and this mountain is not for amateurs. Myriam immediately takes that as a challenge and climbs a difficult route on a climbing wall. When she reaches the top, she laughs and tells Carlos that if his plan was to scare her away, he is going to need a much bigger wall. Then she corners him with one simple truth: if they do not go after the record, someone else will. And Carlos is the heart of this group. If he agrees, the others will follow. The scene then shifts to a flamenco tablao everyone calls El Corral. Armando's father opened it in the 1950s, and this is where the group usually plans their expeditions. Carlos presents the idea: 3 days of climbing followed by a drop of more than 6,000 feet. Chana agrees immediately, but the real big twist comes from Dario. Barely beating a 20-year-old record is not impressive enough. When everyone asks what he means by doing something truly radical, he gives them just 2 words: in wingsuits. People call him a show-off, but his question is simple: do they want another ordinary documentary, or do they want to do something legendary? Training begins, and Carlos openly reveals that his real goal is to take on Nameless Tower in Pakistan. Next, they plan to train on the 800-foot wall at Riglos, but Chana cannot join them because he has an exhibition jump at a festival in Toledo. At the wall, Myriam is stunned when she asks who is going to belay Carlos. and Carlos casually explains that he has his own parachute and has already climbed this route before without a rope. In other words, he is planning to climb completely unattached. They both make it all the way up the wall. At the top, Carlos tells Myriam that she will only pass the test if she makes it back to base camp alive, because on Nameless Tower, she will have to walk down instead of flying. Myriam immediately turns it into a challenge, her boots versus his parachute. Carlos takes off through the air, Myriam runs down, and the two meet at the bottom laughing. That is when Carlos asks why she does not jump herself. Myriam says she is a creature of the ground. She has no desire to fly. Carlos tells her that climbing was not originally his thing either. When he was young, a family friend practically dragged him out climbing, and the moment Carlos reached his first wall, he realized that this was exactly what he was meant to do. The scene then cuts to the festival in Toledo, where the crowd is cheering. A little girl in the audience is encouraging her father. Chana and the others walk toward the plane. Everything feels normal. Everything feels routine, and they take off into the sky. Then Carlos gets a call from Armando, but the connection is so bad that he can barely understand anything. The fear on Carlos's face says enough. Something inside him tells him the news is bad. Then Dario calls, and the truth finally comes out. During the jump in Toledo, there has been a downplane incident. Chana is being treated right there on the runway, and his condition is serious. Carlos races there, but the phone signal keeps cutting out. By the time he arrives, it is already over. Chana has passed away, the same man who brought all of them together. And the hardest part is that this was not some reckless stunt. Later, they admit there had been plenty of margin for error. It was a simple demonstration jump Chana had done 100 times before, with very little risk. There was only one difference: the wings. After the funeral, they worry about Chana's daughter, who is also a jumper. Carlos says it is actually good that she does not stop, because otherwise, fear could take control of her. Then she says something that completely changes the way they see everything. When someone says it must have been terrible watching her father go that way, she disagrees. Terrible is watching your father slowly suffer through 2 years of cancer. Her father only knew for a few seconds that his life was ending. Out of his entire life, it was only about 5 seconds. That night, Armando keeps replaying the video of the jump over and over. His girlfriend, Iris, suggests going to Portugal and trying to forget everything, but Armando's answer reveals what is really in his heart. He does not want to forget the good moments, neither the ones already gone nor the ones still waiting ahead. The scene then shifts back to El Corral, where Armando's brother Juanma is determined to modernize the restaurant. The moment Pakistan comes up, their mother gets furious. After what happened to Chana, they are still thinking about this trip. Armando admits that when the moment comes, a man chooses his family. But when someone asks if that means he has cancelled Pakistan, his answer is simple: no, life keeps moving. During a dinner, Dario opens up about the pain of his divorce. He says he never cheated, everything seems strong, and then one day, his wife suddenly told him it was over. At the same table, Alvaro explains that his own girlfriend left him after he took her to watch one of his jumps. And this is where we first hear the name of the place that will eventually change everything: the Crack. Alvaro shows them a video, a canyon in the Alps where you enter a narrow opening and fly only about 6 feet from the rock walls. The moment they watch it, everyone goes silent. Alvaro explains that he is planning to go back there in about a month. That evening, Myriam and Iris have one of the deepest conversations in the story. Iris says she wants children and a dog, but she keeps putting that life off because she is waiting for Armando to stop jumping. She also explains why she never jumps herself. During a training course, they were told to write a letter to their loved ones in case their parachute ever failed. Iris could not bring herself to write that letter, so she quit the course. Then she mentions the fatality list, a worldwide list of people who have lost their lives in base jumping. Just the previous year, another 42 names had been added to it. Iris says this is the reality of the sport, and she has accepted it because despite everything, she is happy. But then one phone call destroys all of their plans. The producer has pulled out. The documentary is finished, and with it, all of their funding disappears too. The reason they are given is almost insulting. Their story is considered too boring for a film. Myriam blames herself because she was the one who brought in the sponsor, but Carlos makes one thing clear: they are doing this anyway. With no choice but to start again from zero, someone makes a suggestion that will change the direction of the story. Armando can go with Alvaro. The scene then cuts to Lauterbrunnen, Switzerland. Alvaro explains the entire route to him. stabilize at around 2,100 feet, build up speed, then enter the crack near the trees on the right. Those 7 seconds inside, he says, are the best 7 seconds of your life. Armando admits that he needed this trip, and this is where Alvaro gives him a warning that will hang over the rest of the story. Do not turn this into a habit. If you start using jumping as an easy escape from your problems, one day the beast will come looking for its share. The next day, both of them successfully fly through the crack. After landing, Armando says he missed hitting the trees by only a few inches. They were supposed to leave the next morning because Alvaro needed to get back to Barcelona. But the place was so beautiful that neither of them could resist the temptation of doing one final jump. The next morning, both are dealing with a hangover. Alvaro says he will not fly through the crack this time. He will exit to the right because he wants to remember yesterday's experience exactly the way it was. They both jump. Armando reaches the ground screaming with excitement, but then starts looking for his friend. The other jumpers tell him they saw Alvaro struggling near the canyon. He had entered the crack after all and seemed to be flying strangely. Armando starts running around desperately, shouting Alvaro's name. Then a voice comes from the other side saying they have found him. Armando is stopped and told that he should not go any closer. Alvaro has passed away. Later, Armando says his memories from that day only come back in fragments because he was completely in shock. And for Myriam, this is the moment she realizes that the fatality list is not something that only happens to other people. It is completely real. Carlos says he has been losing friends since he was 20 years old, and it is something you never get used to. When asked about fear, his answer is simple. You should be afraid. The real problem begins when you are no longer afraid. Armando asks for a break. He is not backing out of Pakistan, but for now, he cannot fly. Dario, however, does not stop. Friends, this is Dario, a force of nature, a chef by profession, brutally honest on the outside, but just as soft underneath. After his divorce, he moved in with his sister so he could stay close to his daughters. During a public talk, he defends the way he lives. When someone says cooking cannot take your life, he mentions a famous chef whose life ended after losing a star. And when someone compares his obsession with jumping to a dangerous addiction, Dario gives an answer that reaches the heart of the entire film. If he wanted to escape reality, there are easier ways to do that. Because when he is up there, he has never felt more present. Meanwhile, the group reaches another jump site. The air is heavy and the currents are unpredictable. Carlos says he will go first, and this is where everything goes wrong. A gust hits him from behind and pushes him directly toward the rocks. Carlos crashes into the cliff. He survives, but his nose is broken, and the doctors make it clear that his helmet is what saved him. Outside the hospital, Iris tells a story. At a museum in Paris, a guide once said that true beauty appears only when the person looking at it disappears completely into the experience. Armando immediately told her that she had just described what flying feels like. Up there, he disappears. Iris says that is one of the reasons she chose Armando. Meanwhile, Dario is drowning in guilt. He is not worried about Carlos's broken nose. It is the concussion that bothers him. Carlos cannot jump for 6 months, and Dario believes it happened because of him. His sister Silka forces him to face reality. His daughters depend on him. Her final words hit Dario hard. He is not as free as he used to be. Then Carlos and Myriam decide to move in together. Carlos happily brings up the idea of starting a family, but Myriam makes it clear that having children is her decision too, and she intends to live her life at her own pace. They agree to be together on one condition: neither of them will take away the other's freedom. But soon afterward, one phone call delivers another huge blow to their dream. A Russian jumper has set a new world record by making a wingsuit jump from Everest at 23,688 feet. Who is going to sponsor them now? But Dario refuses to give up. His argument is simple. That man only proved that such a jump is possible. He did not climb Nameless Tower and then jump from it. That night, Dario meets Letizia at a bar. When they reach her place, he looks out the window and is stunned. She lives on the 32nd floor of Madrid Tower, directly above Gran Via, and Letizia is moving out the very next day. At 2 a.m, Dario immediately heads over to Armando. They only have one night to take advantage of the opportunity. The two make their way onto the roof, jump on the green light, open the parachute immediately and be on the ground before the light turns red. Then they leap from the building right in the middle of the city. Both land in the plaza below and are immediately caught by the police. 4 months later, Armando calls Carlos, clearly worried. Dario is determined to make his jump at a festival even higher because the show is being dedicated to Alvaro. Carlos tells him that if the jump point has already been established, he needs to respect it. Then Carlos finally gives him some good news. The sponsorship deal is closing the next day, and they are leaving for Pakistan in 2 months. That day, Myriam gives Carlos a check for $30,000, money she borrowed from the bank. But instead of being happy, Carlos gets angry, and this is where the big twist comes out. There is no meeting and no pitch. Carlos has already signed a contract for a regular 9-to-5 desk job with a salary, vacation days, and even a lunch break, and he has been hiding it from Armando and Dario. The argument gets worse, and in anger, Carlos calls Myriam a groupie. By the time he tries to apologize, it is already too late. Myriam walks away. On the day of the festival, Armando tells Dario to stick to exactly what they practiced. But Dario says the crowd came there to see a great show. And at that exact moment, somewhere else, Carlos is beginning his completely new life. People are welcoming him to his new job as he takes a deep breath and walks inside. The same man who was once proud that he never had to clock into an office. Meanwhile, Dario reaches the top and insists on going even higher. And then in front of thousands of people, the thing everyone feared finally happens. Dario loses his life. After the screams comes a silence that feels like it will never end. Carlos gets the news through a call from Iris. Later, he and Armando clean Dario's gear together, and Armando's biggest pain is that the two of them went up there after arguing with each other. He reveals that his mother made him promise to give everything up, and Carlos gives him an answer that cuts deep. Settling for something and actually being happy are not the same thing. Iris and Myriam once again become each other's support and go climbing together. Armando keeps only half of his promise. He gives up proximity flying, but he cannot completely walk away from base jumping or climbing. Then El Corral receives a Michelin star, and in the middle of the celebration, Carlos calls, he has finally reached Pakistan. And then comes the moment the entire story has been building toward. A few days later, Carlos makes a base jump from Nameless Tower at 19,685 feet and dedicates the jump to Dario. The film ends by leaving us with one final question. Maybe all of this is just an illusion, but who would really want to live without it? So friends, this story teaches us that the length of a life and the depth of a life are not always the same thing. But there is another truth too. Behind every jump, someone who loves you is left waiting. What do you think? Is it really worth chasing a dream this far?